Hello, and welcome to Sapien Podcast. Today, we're going to do a deeper dive into the branding strategies with Matthew Asinari. So, Matthew, what are the different companies that you worked with and how you helped those companies in branding?
I can show you the type of clients that we have. And we can, of course, then apply that knowledge to a multitude of projects and clients, because what I will share with you is what we call the four pillars of life and success. Whether we're working for clients or have experience having worked with brands like Vuitton, or large foundations like the Bezos Earth Fund, or a bank like HSBC, as you can see here, all the way to Ferrari branding, or the X Prize, which is a large organization for innovation transformation. What we found out is basically that we have found that through a large group of studies worldwide, and you can see here, that was actually done for 63,000 brands in 52 countries. This is a very long, 20 years long global study done by the WPP group called BAV, Brand Asset Evaluator. I've been working with them for 20 years. I highly recommend them. We will put a link to the Brand Asset Evaluator group at the bottom on your website, so people can actually use their services. They have a fundamental science that really shows how you can actually manage either your company, your business, but also ultimately, as we will see later on, how these four pillars of success can actually be applied to ourselves as individuals, whether we are a scientist, we are a sports leader, whether we work in fashion, whether we are a teacher, whether we run any small to large organization.
Right.
So in going back to the findings, what we found that the truth of success and the power of life cycle of any entity, whether it's a Nike or it's an Apple, whether it's Nokia or it's a Samsung, is based on, and this also applies to individuals as well, is based on four pillars. The first pillar is differentiation. You can see here. Which is basically your unique point of difference in terms of either your know-how or your emotional association and values. And the second pillar is relevance, meaning what do you do for me? Okay, that varies, of course, on the company or on the individual, but these two are intrinsically intertwined as under what we call brand strength, which is basically, as you can see, are the ones here on the top left quadrant, are the pillars of growth and life of any entity, any brand, any individual, any organization. Following up are what we call the brand stature pillar, which is esteem. This one here, basically, esteem is a combination of quality, perception, and trust, which are very, very important these days. And knowledge. Knowledge is not intended, I've heard about you, but actually I've experienced you. So, for example, not only I know Nike, but I also wear Nike shoes, or I've been to Nike Town. When these four pillars are all maximized, that's where you have the maximum power of any organization and even their financial success. The cycle of a brand or an individual, even ourselves in life, can be affected also by decline. And in this case, what we notice that the key decline is usually starting when there's a decline in differentiation and relevance. We may still be highly known and esteemed to some degree, but our differentiation and relevance has declined, and then the market share and the performance of the brand declines. I'll just give an example. So when Nokia used to be the leading phone cell company and creating wonderful high-tech phones, right? But when the Apple iPhone came to life, and they grew up and replaced them, and Nokia now has almost declined to oblivion in some markets because their differentiation, their relevance decline, while still the name is still well known even now. However, it is possible that Nokia could be reborn by reinventing itself, by recreating a new differentiated and relevant product, which ultimately will reboost and regenerate their life cycle. Now, what is interesting about this is this particular science, the brand asset value science, has been also linked and proven to actually be statistically aligned with actual financial and market share performance. So not only this is actually a scientific measurement of life cycle of individuals or brands or organizations, but it's also linked to an actual performance financially in terms of market share, in terms of profitability and powerful leadership. So we noticed that the brands which are in the first quadrant, the bottom one, right, they have a very low profitability, low margins, and low market share. We noticed that as they go up, they increase their margins and slowly their market share. And ultimately, when they're in the top right quadrant, they have maximum market share, maximum margins, maximum profit. And at the same time, they also become very, very, very strong and enduring. So I'll show you some examples. First, I want to give you a sense of how these brands ultimately position themselves from a categorical standpoint. It's very easy to understand what's going on once, and then we can give you some examples of how each one can actually be specifically addressed by category. So on the vertical axis, we have a measurement of 1 to 100 in quantitative terms, in terms of the brand strength, which is combination of differentiation and relevance together. Do you remember the first two pillars? And then on the horizontal axis is the combination of brand stature, which is what comes afterward, which is the esteem and knowledge of the entity of the brand. So what we then grouped out of the 63,000 companies, organization, and names, we grouped them by industry, and we found that which proved the overall system and science, that the lowest rated ones are commodity type of organizations or brands. Here we have, oil and gas, copper, and so on and so forth. Organizations that basically sell raw materials, mostly unbranded. Then the next level up are pipeline brands. These are where the telecoms, for example, are in every country, tend to create pipeline services, but they also battle extensively on price and services. The next group of companies and organizations are product brands. Here you have the traditional product brands. It could be Colgate, it could be Procter & Gamble products, or a shampoo brand, or any product brand. They tend to be more powerful, to have more margins, to have a stronger market share, and they tend to be more resilient to threats, because the customization, you'll notice as we go up, what increases is the customization of what they're offering to the world, to the marketplace, and the uniqueness of it. The next one up are the service brands. This is where we have banks, for example, where there is an interaction with the consumer. There's a stronger bond. Usually they end up being related to things that are more important to us. It's not just buying a shampoo, but it's the wealth, it's managing our wealth and supporting us to that. The next level up is very, very interesting. We found that these brands are mostly experiential brands. So it could be a Nike or an Adidas, where the brand and the company organizes experiences around their own name and their own products. So not only they offer a product, not only they offer services, but they also offer experiences. So Nike has Nike Town, has sponsorship of sports events, and involves you in their life, and your life is connected to these experiences. They also help you manage your life with the campaign, Let's Do It, right? This leads to the next level up, which is the highest grouping of all organizations and entities and brands in the broader sense, are the values-led brands. They start with companies such as Harley Davidson, for example, where while the technology, the motorcycle is quite unique, it's not necessarily the most advanced technologically compared to, say, the Japanese motorcycles or the Italian or European motorcycles, but they represent rebellion, they represent a free spirit, and so on and so forth. It starts with those, but ultimately here in the values that brands actually have a much more involving organizations. It could start with your sports team, which you follow every day of your life, and you really feel involved, part of it, but all the way to a religion or a country. So, for example, many countries are associated with specific values and lifestyle, whether it's America or India, whether it's France or Thailand, whether it's Japan or Russia or China or versus Korea. And they represent very high involvement. They're part of our life. And what is interesting is that as we ourselves and our organization strive to evolve, to empower ourselves, or to do better, or to help the world to be better, the more we stay up and at the content of what either we do ourselves or what we provide, the more we go up, the better we will be, or the world will be. And that's very important to keep in mind. And usually the best ones are the ones who connect all of this. So even take a brand like Nike, they connect the value of being determined and to be courageous and to let's do it, all the way to the Nike Town experience, all the way to the services of Nike and the products of Nike's. So that's very important. So what is interesting is, how do we apply this to ourselves, right? So do you follow this? How do you find it?
Yeah, this is really interesting. So the first question I would have about this particular slide is, every business starts with with an individual. So
Correct.
if branding, I mean, eventually everybody thinks about becoming next Ralph Lauren or Chanel. But they have to start individually with one small, probably in their garage. So when they start, so as we see in this, or out of these four quadrants, on the left bottom quadrant, when all the differentiation, relevance, esteem, and knowledge are at its lowest point, what actually drives them at that time, do you think? What should drive them?
Okay, so very good question, and actually points to what's most important to this chart and this learning that can be applied to our success and to our companies and to our lives and to our environment. We start almost with a clean slate, with all the four pillars of life and success as low. What's needed and what's shown is that the best, most powerful ones are the ones who focus on differentiation and relevance as being the powerful forces of growth. Esteem and knowledge will grow afterwards. They're almost like the secondary set of pillars. The driving force is what we call brand strength, is your differentiation and relevance. I'll give you a little bit of an example on how we combine these two and how we should look at them, even if our audience thinks about themselves or their own company. So let's take furniture, for example. In the world of furniture, it used to be that there would be either very high, expensive designer furniture, which has beautiful design, but also very expensive, or very low quality, low cost furniture with no style. IKEA created a new model of relevant differentiation, which made them grow, because they created the concept of affordable style in furniture. Basically, what they designed is, in an intelligent way, they created high-end designer furniture at low cost. And the low cost was in the choice of materials, the choice of the manufacturing, the choice of distribution, the intelligent way of allowing you to assemble the items. All of a sudden, the relative differentiations started going up. And ultimately, then they started becoming esteemed and trusted and known. And that's how the life cycle starts. and so that's very important to keep in mind. And at the same time, also that's true. The relevant differentiation is also our protection, meaning in our lives, or whether it's the life of our own company, always be careful not to think comfortably that because you're well known and highly esteemed that you're actually going to still be relevant. Look what's happening in many industries right now, whether you're in the legal systems, in medical systems, in the automotive systems, and the telecom systems. There's so much innovation competition. All of a sudden, what was your unique pillar of differentiation relevance is all of a sudden replaced by another organization, other company, other type of service. All of a sudden, and this was happened to Nokia when the Apple iPhone came out, all of a sudden they became totally irrelevant because the relevant differentiation of an Apple iPhone was better. So that's our kind of the secret. You have to look always at the yellow and darker yellow pillars as keeping you always forward thinking. So as the world changes, whether we are a scientist or we are a marketing company, we always have to offer something different and relevant, and the magic combination of those two. And that's very important.
Right. Thank you. So I think for the top right quadrant, the companies that are most successful, one of the examples that you were talking about, like we are discussing really, was about Chanel and how Chanel became more relevant these days. If you can share the story.
Yes. I can share the story by telling you about the story about Chanel Chance. It's actually quite interesting. When and we will show the images about this, but when Chanel we were working with Chanel, what we noticed that the brand was very strong with an older audience, but the market share and the growth was really coming from younger audiences. And their brand, Chanel No. 5, is a well-known, has this very, very iconic cube shape, and it was targeted mostly and well-known for being almost like my mother perfume. So they were losing market share to the youth, and so relating to the four power pillars, the problem was that the differentiation was high, but the relevance was declining because consumers were saying it's not for me, it's for my mother. So what we created was we designed a complete new product for the younger audience that was true to the spirit of Chanel, but it was designed to targeting young consumers. And we developed the brand that is now well known as Chanel Chance. Chanel Chance was a very interesting concept on how we develop a new product truly from basing it on the spirit of Chanel, but then and expressing it in a way that will make it relevant again. So the relevance and the differentiation will go back up to solidify the position of Chanel worldwide. And the way we did that was actually to design a younger perfume in terms of the profile of the perfume, but also defining it via a new name and via a new shape of the bottle. And in the search of the new name, and I remember being at the meeting where we were discussing the various names, we developed one of the names in a list of 10 was the name Chance. And some of our part of our discussion was really related to the fact that chance is interesting, but seems to be a little bit risky because people take chances and people should not be taking chances. But we looked at the history of Coco Chanel herself. So the name is on the door. Chanel is actually the last name of the founder, Coco Chanel. And we found that she was actually very, very courageous, very innovative, very disruptive in terms of fashion and style. And she will use the perfume to express that brand, but also she became a brand of fashion as well as the perfumes. And so the groups in the management started becoming a little bit more comfortable with it, but they were still a little bit nervous about it until we pointed out that the name Chanel has CHAN, and chance, CHAN, are intrinsically connected. At that point, they say, okay, yes, we do that. And in addition to that, we also recommended, they create a beautiful round shape of the bottle, still with the same qualities of glass materials, the cap, everything is so beautifully crafted. But to indicate a new shape means a new form, a new relevant differentiation for the brand. And it became a success because the project was developed throughout all its aspects of the brand experience and the brand value. So we stayed true to what the brand values were, timeless. We created an experience through the bottle and the product and the overall experience of EMB, how it was sold to young consumers was all customized to that approach. So that means that actually whatever we're doing, whether it's our own brand in running a sports studio or having entrepreneurial new company or dealing in other fields, we always want to make sure that we keep these four pillars and these elements, which are being proven over and over again to be linked literally to financial success around the world across industries.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a great, that's a great example. I really love that particular name tweaking that you did.
Yeah.
And it actually caught their eye almost immediately.
Interesting enough, I think in all of us, we have a little bit of multinationality in our DNA, I guess, right?
Right.
About 23andMe, we all have like provenance from various cultures.
Right.
And
have you done it, by the way?
No. This is
Okay.
really interesting.
It's interesting because, and it quite, relevant to the discussion that we are having. I just read a few months ago that 23andMe is losing share, like their share value dropped like up to pennies or something like that.
Wow.
Because they're losing their relevance. Anyway, please go ahead.
So it's interesting. You're already using the four pillars in analyzing. It's true. That's very
it is.
Yeah.
It's really, as you mentioned at the beginning as well, it is really a science. And
it was quantitatively proven, linked.
Absolutely.
We worked with Oxford University, Wharton universities, with multiple universities and organizations to actually quantitatively validate all of this over 20 years. But it's actually quite interesting that proves that every market is very dynamic and it's very changing very, very quickly. Look at what's happening now, for example, with AI, that is going to disrupt and change. So will make a lot of interest, current situations opportunistic, at the same time challenges, because the differentiation relevance will continue to change.
Right. Thank you for joining the Sapien Podcast today. I hope that you can implement these ideas and strategies in your own business. Next week, Matthew is going to shed light on how to brand countries. So please like, share, and subscribe Sapien Podcast. See you soon.